Between 2008 and 2014, the Federal Reserve created out of thin air $16 trillion. Let me say that again. $16 trillion. It's a number so large it's almost meaningless. It's more than the entire economic output of China. It's enough to give every man, woman, and child in the United States $50,000. And you got nothing. No check in the mail. No deposit in your bank account. Nothing. So where did it all go? To understand that, you need to understand what the Federal Reserve is and what it did. The Fed is the central bank of the United States. It's the bank for banks. And in 2008, the banks were in trouble. They had made a series of reckless bets on the housing market, and those bets had gone bad. They were on the verge of collapse, and if they collapsed, they would take the entire global economy with them. So the Fed stepped in. They created a series of emergency lending programs. They gave money to banks in the United States. They gave money to banks in Europe. They gave money to corporations. They gave money to anyone and everyone who was deemed too big to fail. And they did it all in secret. For years, the Fed refused to disclose who they had given money to or how much. They claimed it was necessary to protect the privacy of the recipients. But the real reason was that they didn't want you to know the truth. They didn't want you to know that they were bailing out the very same banks that had caused the crisis. They didn't want you to know that they were giving trillions of dollars to foreign banks with no strings attached. They didn't want you to know that they were propping up a failed system with your money, because the $16 trillion wasn't a gift. It was a loan from the future, a loan that you and your children will have to pay back. How? Through inflation, through a weaker dollar, through a lower standard of living. Because when the Fed prints money, it doesn't create wealth, it just redistributes it. It takes purchasing power from the people who hold dollars, savers, workers, retirees, and gives it to the people who are closest to the money printer, the banks, the corporations, the government. This is the Cantillon effect, and it's the biggest transfer of wealth in human history. And it's happening again. In 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Fed printed another $4 trillion. And again, you got nothing. But the banks did. The corporations did. The stock market did. The S&P 500 is up 70% since the start of the pandemic. The median home price is up 30%. Bitcoin is up 500%. But what about you? Are you 70% richer? Is your salary up 30%? Did your savings account grow by 500%? Of course not. Because you are not part of the club. You are not on the inside. You are not one of the chosen few who get to drink from the fire hose of free money. You are the one who has to pay the price. You are the one who has to deal with the inflation, the asset bubbles, the social unrest that are the inevitable consequences of the Fed's actions. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is a fact that was hidden from the American people for years. It was only after a multi-year legal battle, led by Senator Bernie Sanders and Congressman Ron Paul, that the Fed was finally forced to reveal the details of the $16 trillion bailout. And what they revealed was shocking. They had given money to every major bank in the world. They had given money to companies like General Electric and Verizon. They had given money to the central banks of South Korea and Mexico. They had become the lender of last resort to the entire world. And they had done it all without the consent or even the knowledge of the American people. This is the secret of the Federal Reserve. This is the secret of the $16 trillion. It wasn't a bailout of the American economy. It was a bailout of the global financial system. A system that is built on a foundation of debt and fraud. A system that is designed to enrich the few at the expense of the many. And as long as that system is in place, they will keep printing. They will keep bailing. They will keep transferring wealth from you to them. Until one day, there is nothing left to take. Let's be very clear about what this means. This isn't just a number. It's a theft of your purchasing power, a theft of your future. Every dollar the Fed prints makes the dollars in your pocket worth less. It's a hidden tax, a tax that you pay every time you go to the grocery store, every time you fill up your car, every time you pay your rent. It's a tax that falls most heavily on the poor and the middle class, the people who live on fixed incomes, the people who can't afford to invest in the assets that are being inflated by the Fed's money printing. The rich get richer because they own the assets. The poor get poorer because they own the dollars. It's a system of financial apartheid. And it's a system that is destroying the fabric of our society. The social contract is broken. The idea that if you work hard, play by the rules, and save your money, you will be able to build a better life for yourself and your family. That idea is dead. It has been killed by the Federal Reserve. It has been killed by a system that rewards speculation over production, a system that rewards insiders over outsiders, a system that rewards the rich over the poor. This is not capitalism. This is cronyism. This is a system where the government and the banks work together to enrich themselves at the expense of the people. And it's a system that is on the verge of collapse. The $16 trillion question is, what comes next? And what can you do to protect yourself? To write. Let's go deeper into the rabbit hole because the story gets even more disturbing. The $16 trillion wasn't just a single one-time event. It was a slow, steady drip of poison into the financial system over a period of 6 years. It was a series of more than 21 0 transactions to hundreds of different financial institutions all around the world. And it was all done in the dark with no public debate, no congressional oversight, and no accountability. The Fed's own audit, which they were forced to conduct and release by a provision in the Dodd-Frank Act, revealed the shocking details. The biggest recipient of the bailout money was not an American bank. It was Barclays, a British bank, which received over $868 billion. The second biggest was not a commercial bank at all. It was Bear Stearns, a failed investment bank, which received over $1 trillion in emergency loans before it was sold to JP Morgan Chase for pennies on the dollar. The list goes on and on. Morgan Stanley, Citigroup, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. Every major Wall Street firm was on the list. But so were foreign banks like the Royal Bank of Scotland, Deutsche Bank and UBS. And so were corporations like General Electric, which received over $16 billion in short-term loans to finance its massive and risky commercial paper operations. This was not a bailout of Main Street. It was a bailout of Wall Street. It was a bailout of the global financial elite. It was a bailout of the very people who had caused the crisis in the first place. And it was done with your money, your future, your children's future. The Fed will tell you that this was necessary to prevent a complete collapse of the financial system. They will tell you that they were acting as the lender of last resort, as they are supposed to do. But the lender of last resort is supposed to lend to solvent institutions that are facing a temporary liquidity crisis. It is not supposed to lend to insolvent institutions that are bankrupt. It is not supposed to lend to foreign banks. It is not supposed to lend to corporations. The Fed didn't just cross the line, they erased it. And the consequences of their actions are all around us. The massive increase in the money supply has led to a massive increase in asset prices. The stock market, the housing market, the art market, everything is in a bubble. This has made the rich, who own the assets, even richer. And it has made the poor, who own nothing but their labor, even poorer. The wealth gap is now wider than it has been at any time since the 1920s, and the social fabric is tearing apart. The rise of populism, the anger, the frustration, the sense that the system is rigged, all of it can be traced back to the actions of the Federal Reserve. So what can you do? How can you protect yourself from a system that is designed to steal your wealth? The first step is to understand the game. To understand that the dollar is not a stable store of value. It is a tool of a bankrupt government, a tool that is being used to transfer wealth from you to the financial elite. The second step is to get out of the dollar. To the extent that you can, you should convert your savings into assets that cannot be printed. Assets that have a limited supply. Assets that have a long history of preserving wealth. Gold, silver, Bitcoin. These are the lifeboats in the coming storm. They are not a get-rich-quick scheme. They are a get-safe-slow scheme. They are a way to preserve your purchasing power in a world of monetary chaos. The third step is to build your own ark. To create your own sources of income that are not dependent on a paycheck. To build your own businesses. To invest in your own skills. To become a producer, not just a consumer. To become a creator, not just a cog in a machine. This is the path to true financial sovereignty. It's not easy, it's not quick, but it's the only way to escape the matrix. The only way to break free from a system that is designed to enslave you. The $16 trillion bailout was a wake-up call. It was a glimpse behind the curtain, a glimpse into the dark heart of the financial system. The question is, what will you do now that you know the truth? Will you go back to sleep? Or will you start building your ark to right? Let's talk more about the Cantillon effect, because it is the key to understanding the injustice of the current system. The effect, first described by the 18th century economist Richard Cantillon, is simple. When new money is created, it does not enter the economy evenly. The people who get the money first, the banks, the government, the large corporations, get to spend it before prices have had a chance to adjust. They get the full benefit of the new money. But as that money circulates through the economy, it bids up the prices of goods and services. By the time the new money reaches the average person, the wage earner, the retiree, prices have already risen. Their purchasing power has been diluted. They are poorer, not richer. This is the hidden mechanism of wealth transfer. It's a subtle but powerful form of theft. And in the case of the $16 trillion bailout, the Cantillon effect was on steroids. The Fed didn't just print money, it injected it directly into the veins of the financial system. The banks got the money first, at near zero interest rates. They used it to repair their balance sheets, to pay themselves massive bonuses, and to speculate in the stock market. The stock market, fueled by this river of free money, went on a historic bull run. The rich, who own the vast majority of stocks, saw their wealth explode. But what about the real economy? What about Main Street? The money never got there. It was trapped in the financial system, creating a massive asset bubble, while the real economy stagnated. This is the great disconnect of the modern economy. We have a booming stock market, but stagnant wages. We have record corporate profits, but record levels of inequality. We have a financial system that is awash in cash, but a real economy that is starved of investment. This is not an accident. This is the direct result of the Fed's policies. Policies that have prioritized the health of the financial system over the health of the real economy. Policies that have bailed out the rich and left the poor to fend for themselves. And the moral hazard of these policies is staggering. The Fed has taught the banks that they can take reckless risks, and if those risks pay off, they get to keep the profits. But if those risks blow up, the Fed will be there to bail them out. There is no downside. There is no accountability. It's a system of heads I win, tails you lose. A system that encourages and rewards the very behavior that led to the 2008 crisis in the first place. And it's a system that is destined to repeat itself. The next crisis is not a matter of if, but when. And when it comes, it will be bigger and more destructive than the last one. Because the underlying problems have not been solved. They have been papered over with a mountain of new debt. A mountain that is about to come crashing down. The 2020 pandemic response was a replay of the 2008 crisis, but on an even grander scale. The Fed printed another $4 trillion. The government sent out stimulus checks. But where did most of the money go? It went to the same place it went in 2008. It went to the banks, it went to the corporations, it went to the rich. The stock market went on another epic bull run. The housing market went parabolic. The rich got richer, and you got inflation. You got a cost of living crisis. You got a system that is more unequal, more unstable, and more unjust than ever before. The $16 trillion was not a one-time event. It was the beginning of a new era, an era of permanent crisis and permanent bailouts, an era where the Fed is the master of the universe, and you are just a pawn in their game. The only way to win is not to play.